Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Sunday, March 14th, Pope Francis appeals for an end to Syria's decade-long civil war and laments the destruction and displacement of countless Syrians. Filipino Catholics celebrate the 500th anniversary of the arrival of Christianity in the Philippines with the Papal Mass. And the church in Bangladesh is seeking to plant one tree per Catholic as part of a Laudato Si initiative. In the Vatican, I'm Devin Watkins. On March 15, 2011, unrest among the people of Syria boiled over. Protests against the Ba'athist government of President Bashar al-Assad escalated into an armed conflict following a violent suppression of demonstrations. Now, 10 years later, Pope Francis is once again lifting his voice to lament the war and its many devastating effects on Syrians. The Syrian civil war, he said after the Angelus prayer on Sunday, has caused one of the worst humanitarian disasters of our times. He said it has left an untold number of people dead and wounded and immense suffering for all, especially the most vulnerable, such as children, women, and the elderly. In response, Pope Francis renewed his heartfelt appeal for all parties to the conflict to show signs of goodwill so that a glimmer of hope may open up for the exhausted population. He also called on the international community to provide decisive and renewed commitment to rebuilding the nation, so that once the weapons are laid down, the social fabric may be mended and reconstruction and economic recovery can begin. Let us all pray to the Lord that so much suffering in our beloved and tormented Syria will not be forgotten, he prayed, and that our solidarity will revive hope. And as Syrians mark this grim anniversary, Nathan Morley takes a look at the war's toll.
Since the conflict erupted a decade ago, Syria has witnessed unprecedented devastation and displacement. As it stands, more than 5 million Syrians have fled the country and 6 million remain internally displaced. Furthermore, with more than 13 million people in need of assistance, the conflict has caused untold suffering for Syrian men, women and children. In such conditions, there is an enormous need for humanitarian aid in the country. More than 13.4 million people are in need of some sort of relief, according to the United Nations. At the same time, the UN says that delivering aid is dangerous and sometimes deadly. On average, at least 2 aid workers and 8 medical personnel are killed in Syria every month. The situation in the country's northwest, where millions of children remain displaced, is particularly alarming, with many families having fled multiple times, some as many as 7 times in search of safety. They are living in tents, shelters, and wrecked or derelict buildings. Elsewhere in the country, after a decade of war, 9 in 10 children still are in need of help. The UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, says that families have been pushed to the brink of despair. To make matters worse, the Syrian economy is also in tatters. The price of the average food basket increased by more than 230% in the last year, and more than 500,000 children under 5 suffer from stunting as a result of chronic malnutrition. For Vatican News, this is Nathan Morley reporting.
As the church celebrates Laetare Sunday, Pope Francis prayed the Angelus with pilgrims in St. Peter's Square and invited Christians to draw near to the light of Christ. Speaking ahead of the noonday Angelus prayer, the Pope considered why the 4th Sunday of Lent has such a joyous focus. The reason, he said, is given in the Gospel. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him might not perish, but might have eternal life.
Questo gioioso messaggio è il cuore della fede cristiana.
This joyful message is the heart of the Christian faith, said the Pope. God's love found its summit in the gift of his Son to a weak and sinful humanity. In the day's Gospel, Nicodemus comes to Jesus at night to inquire as to his identity. Jesus, said the Pope, shakes Nicodemus's faith by presenting himself under 3 aspects.
Quello del figlio dell'uomo, esaltato sulla croce.
The Son of Man exalted on the cross, the Son of God sent into the world for salvation, and that of the light which distinguishes those who follow the truth from those who follow lies. The first aspect of Jesus' identity, said the Pope, recalls the serpent which Moses lifted up in the desert to save the people from death due to snake bites. Similarly, he noted, Jesus was lifted up on the cross, and those who believe in him are healed of sin and live. Pope Francis said the second aspect, that of the Son of God, highlights God's gift of his only Son for the salvation of humanity. Jesus also describes himself to Nicodemus as the light, which is opposed to darkness.
La venuta di Gesù nel mondo provoca una scelta.
The coming of Jesus into the world leads to a choice that results in a person facing the judgment of condemnation or salvation, said the Pope. Pope Francis then urged Christians to live our Lenten journey as one directed toward the light of Christ.
Accogliere la luce nella nostra coscienza.
We are called, he said, to welcome the light into our conscience, to open our hearts to God's infinite love. God, he concluded, always forgives us when we ask him to. And the Pope prayed that the Virgin Mary might give us the courage to allow Jesus to throw our faith into crisis.
È una crisi salutare per la nostra guarigione.
It is a healthy crisis, he said, for our healing, so that our joy may be full. Pope Francis joined the Church in the Philippines in commemorating 500 years of Christianity in the Southeast Asian nation. In his homily at Mass in St. Peter's on Sunday, the Pope spoke about the witness Filipinos give through their constant joy and hard-working presence.
E questa gioia si vede nel vostro popolo, si vede nei vostri occhi, nei vostri volti.
We see it in your eyes, on your faces, in your songs, and in your prayers, he said. Pope Francis also urged Filipinos to persevere in the work of evangelization as they mark this important milestone.
Non abbiate paura di annunciare il Vangelo.
Never be afraid to proclaim the gospel, he said, to serve and to love. Turning to the Sunday gospel, Pope Francis pointed out that it contains the heart of Jesus' message. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. The Pope added that the gospel message is not an idea or a doctrine, but Jesus himself. He then spoke about two aspects of the day's gospel passage: God so loved and God gave. Pope Francis said that God so loved that he came to seek us out when we were lost and raise us up.
Egli da sempre ci ha guardati con amore.
God, he said, has always looked at us with love, and for the sake of love, he came among us in the flesh of his Son. The Pope added that God reminds us in Jesus that we are not lost, but loved forever. Pope Francis then reflected on the action of God's love. God gave his Son for our salvation. Love, noted the Pope, takes us out of ourselves and always seeks to give itself fully.
La forza dell'amore è proprio questa.
That is the power of love, he said. It shatters the shell of our selfishness, breaks down our carefully constructed security zones, tears down walls, and overcomes fears. As we see in people who love one another, he said, the more we love, the more we become capable of giving. The Pope said that sometimes we seek joy in dreams of glory or in the false security of material possessions.
L'esperienza della vita ci insegna che la vera gioia.
Yet, concluded Pope Francis, life teaches us that true joy comes from realizing that we are loved gratuitously and that we are not alone. As Filipinos in the country and across the world celebrate 500 years of Christianity, we spoke to Archbishop Romulo Valles of Davao about the quincentenary. He explains why the anniversary is important and how Filipinos are called to be missionary disciples.
That celebration serves also to make a statement, a point. How does one evangelize today in the Philippines? First, I would say that today you do evangelizing to deeply realize and appreciate that we are gifted with faith from the Lord. That is why our theme for this celebration is gifted to give. To realize that we are gifted with faith, and together with that realization also comes the desire to share this faith. We are gifted, and then we try to give this faith to others. Now, for each individual, and the many activities of this Jubilee year would be around that dynamics that the individual must first review and reappreciate again the giftedness that we have in faith, and realize that we also have from that giftedness the responsibility to do mission, to share that faith. That's why I would add what is needed to be able to continue proclaiming the word in times that have changed. In the context of our Jubilee, we try to provide more opportunities for formation and catechesis, so that there one will realize all the more that we are gifted by the Lord, that the Lord wants us to feel His presence, and then in turn we do mission. We share that faith to others.
Thanks there to Archbishop Romulo Valles, President of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines. And finally, the Church in Bangladesh has launched a tree planting initiative as part of its response to Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si. Cardinal Patrick de Rosario, the Archbishop Emeritus of Dhaka, says the plan is to plant one tree for every Catholic in the country. He spoke to Father Benedict Mayake about the importance of this initiative and the message it sends about caring for our common home.
We decided to plant about 400,000 trees. And why 400,000 trees? Because we are 400,000 Catholics in Bangladesh. So each Catholic will plant one tree as sign of the faithful citizenship of the world, because we have to take care of the home, common home, and also the country. This tree plantation that we have undertaken is not seen as an isolated agricultural program, but the project is oriented towards motivation to bring the message of the Laudato Si by creating awareness of the present ecological crisis, by providing Christian and human perspective for motivation to undertake practical actions, as indicated in Laudato Si. Besides, this tree plantation is also a respect of creation positively, because it serves creation itself. It becomes a part of the creation. So this tree plantation has pedagogical function of being one with and close to nature. It helps food safety and promotes love for creation. Tree plantation also brings ecological conversion by promoting awareness of our common home, of our irresponsibility and failures in environmental care. It promotes a spirit of rearing, caring, and sharing values. Tree plantation develops, I think, the relationship with the creation, relationship with the Creator, and relationship with the human beings, and especially the poor ones in the creation of God.
That was Cardinal Patrick de Rosario, the Archbishop Emeritus of Dhaka in Bangladesh, speaking to Father Benedict Mayake about a plan to plant one tree for every Catholic in the country. That brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. For more on these and other stories, go to our web portal at www.vaticannews.va. There you can also find all our broadcasts in podcast form. And don't forget to catch the latest updates on our Facebook page and Twitter feed. In the Vatican, I'm Devin Watkins.